he's entirely just driven by this desire for revenge. There's nothing else that
Yeah.
motivates him in life anymore. His wife and child have died. And it's almost like he's a dead man walking by the time the film starts. He's nothing to live for except utterly destroying the life of this guy who's already dead and his family and his legacy, right? And, at the end of the film, he's basically just sitting in a jail cell, right? And he hears that the mother has committed suicide. And, like, my mind went to, like, what is he going to live for anymore? He's basically handed himself over to the cops, confessed to a crime. He has nothing less to live for. And it's such a tragedy because that's obviously not what his wife would have wanted of his life, right?
Hello and welcome back to another episode of D54. I'm Amit and I'm joined by Mr. Sunny.
Hey everyone, good to be here.
We're back. We're talking about, what is this, our fourth or fifth Malayalam movie?
Churning through them.
Yeah, so today we're reviewing Rorschach or Rorschach. Not exactly sure how you say this. It's definitely not the name of a character in the movie, or we don't really know what the title means, but something to ponder for our audience if they know what it means, or what they think this might mean. Let us know. But yeah, man, what's this movie? It's pretty big blockbuster hit. I think it was again, got to give a little shout out to our D54 consultant and friend, Ken Adams. Yeah, man, you've come through again, because I had not heard of this movie, but I'm sure glad that I have now, because I did enjoy it. So thank you again, mate. But yeah, so Rorschach's the, I guess, thriller, maybe action.
So many genres in this.
Yeah, it actually reminds me of a genre which I actually like a lot, which is sort of the film noir, murder mystery kind of genre, which I don't see too much of.
Yeah.
Which I thought that's right down my wheelhouse. Like, I love that mystery stuff, that dark stuff. But let's get straight into it, man. Like, we'll talk about some things, but I think we start off with the characters and cast. Like, the leading actor in this, man, Mammootty, legendary actor from what I understand, and he definitely has that presence.
That's it.
But go for it, man.
So yeah, look, the presence of the main, there was some great acting in this. I thought this is one of the more like standout performances across the board in this film. Yeah. But Mammootty is really quite excellent in this. Like, he's able to kind of portray, again, so much with so little action. The guy comes with such a strong presence, right? You get that straight from like the very opening sequence of this film. You'll remember that he's basically just walking into the police station from the rain, right? He doesn't say a word. It's just like a couple of minutes of him just walking in there. And you already get a sense for this character, right? He's like, his shoulders are drooped. He's wearing this like really dirty sweater or hoodie or something. And he's kind of wringing his hands and he looks really dejected. And he hasn't said a word at this point. And he's already conveyed the feeling of this guy who's heartbroken, supposedly, about the loss of his wife in a car accident, which you learn more about as you go. But look, even in those early scenes, he's a guy that comes up with really strong presence. And I don't know how old he is, but I get the feeling that he's quite old at the point of making this movie. But he's still able to portray that young person energy really strongly. And I think it's a credit to the film that it also doesn't require him to do anything that would kind of show his age at all in any of this. And we might touch on this in the action sequences, but like, I think the action sequences here are really super grounded, right? He's not flying around and like going like super crazy at his fights. It's just hand-to-hand combat, right? It's not too demanding and so completely believable, and also like really good kind of grounded action sequences that keep you in kind of that gritty atmosphere of this film. Look, I was just a huge fan of him, and like, it was a tall order, I think, for every person who had to act beside him in this film.
Oh, yeah.
Because they had to bring their A game, and they all did. Like, the mother, I think, of Dileep, the guy who, she was also a standout performance.
Yeah.
And then his new wife, I guess, Luke Antony's new wife, Mammootty's new wife, had some great sequences where she's just working opposite him, like as a vulnerable lady, but also really fierce and strong and independent as well. Like, it was a tall order, and the people working opposite him did a stellar job, man. So I'm blown away by him. We can talk about the other actresses too, but he was terrific.
Oh man, he was like I think I had talked about it a little bit before, man. Like his the thing he does in this is like he's such a creep. Like
Oh, some of the sneering and the leering,
oh
especially at that his new wife Sujata or whatever,
yes,
is I'm just like, what is going on? Is this guy evil or is he
yeah,
good? And I guess that's a part of the plot, but
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, man. Like the I think this movie like goes down as one of the best movies I've seen in terms of facial expressions from it. So
Oh
there's so many
yes,
characters, man. Like Mammootty himself, he has scenes where he's just looking like so. It's not even evil. It's kind of like slimy. Like he's just looking like just the
yeah,
things he's sort of doing is just like this guy's off his face. And
that's
to
right.
contrast that, the actor who plays the son-in-law, um, the poor guy who's just sort of stuck in between all of this.
Oh yes, the guy who kind of gives up the family at the end or like dobs them
Yeah,
into the
yeah,
police.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That guy's
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah. I
beautiful.
think his name
Oh,
is
dude, Shashankan.
Shushankan. Yeah,
Yeah,
Shushankan. Yeah, he's
yeah, dude.
I think
That
every
guy's
scene of his is just like his face is
he's
so like, what am I going through? So much pain. It's
he's so tormented. He's not having any fun at all. He's just
uh,
in between these like two forces of like this
yes,
strong family and then this Mammootty
yes.
character, and he's just like, I'm getting screwed in every way here.
Everywhere. Yeah, yeah. Nah, there was a lot of really good characters, a lot of really good actors that really brought it. But Mammootty, I think, was you're right. That's a great point. Like he, everyone that acted beside him, like they had to really step up because he was. I mean, I don't know. It's definitely has to be a lot of credit to the writing, directing, cinematography, and everything as well to sort of portray him like that. But he's just so menacing from the start. Like
Yeah,
he's got. I don't know if it's just his physical size. He's actually a big must be a big guy, or they made him look huge, and look
yeah,
like like he could beat up anybody. But yeah, man, like he really brought his A game, and like this was one of the performances that I'm gonna remember. And is with a movie like this that relies so much on performances, it's so important to really capture that, I think, and that's what this movie did, man. But as we said,
it's
there's a
amazing.
whole bunch of characters that sort of brought it, man. Thinking about the mother as well, who was
Oh, dude, yeah,
yeah,
I could ramble about her for a very long time, but
yeah,
I
yeah,
just thought there's probably one scene that stands out, and that's towards the end when her and the Luke Anthony character are having the face off, like they're sitting in his
yes,
house and they're just kind of getting to know each other and what the motivations are. And like both of them just bring their A game to that performance, right? Because like the mother's character, like she moves flawlessly from this kind of meek, downtrodden
mm,
woman, right? Who everyone feels sorry for because she's lost her son and she's
yeah,
not very well off. And then suddenly she just changes into this like matriarchal figure who will do anything to protect her sons and the legacy
mm,
of that Dilip character. You realize that she's the one who's been pulling the strings. And I think she's the one kind of getting them to do the robberies or the stuff all in the
yeah,
background, right? So she can live a comfortable life. And she just moves flawlessly from being that kind of very
yeah,
gentle woman, unassuming mother to just this fierce lady who like
yeah,
poisons someone to death and
yeah,
is like going at it with Mammootty as well. Like just a flawless
yeah.
performance, man. Like just some of the
It was
like
pretty good.
steely looks on her face, you just like, man, I don't want to mess with this lady.
Yeah,
Just
that's
just
I think that's
incredible.
the scene you mentioned about the poisoning of the cop. That was an incredible scene. Like she just
That's
the way she's describing her story, how I think she's saying something like, I almost tried to kill myself when I heard
yeah,
that when my son passed away, and people that try to kill themselves have a certain strength, and then the cop just looks like, oh crap, what have
I've
I
made
got
a huge
myself into
mistake.
here? Yeah,
That's right. And even as he's getting poisoned, she's just very calmly explaining what
yeah,
she's doing, right? It's not like she's
yeah,
freaking out. This is just a thing she
yeah.
realizes she has to do. So there's a kind of degree of insanity there that you think that this is a
Oh man,
justifiable action, right?
yeah. No, and I love again the I think that was probably the highlight for the son-in-law. He's just like he just
He's just like, what have I gotten myself
yeah.
into?
He's like he's like I've seen this father kill what's it no I've seen the son kill the father. Now I've seen the mother kill a cop. It's like what have you
And
got
then he's
myself into
helping
here?
digging the grave and the backyard. Like, it's just right there. Like, oh man, poor guy.
Yeah,
Poor
yeah.
guy. Didn't know what he
No
was
man, the
marrying
actors
into.
were no, definitely not. But Yeah, I could talk about just the performances itself because that was so great. But one other thing I did notice, man, before we sort of talk on the plot, because I think there's so much to dissect in this movie
Yeah.
in terms of the storyline. Before we jump into that, man, one thing I've noticed about these movies, and we'll talk about it a little bit of comparisons later too,
Mm.
but like they all look really stylistic and they're really well shot,
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
professional. It's a really technically done, technically well done movie. But
100%.
one thing, and I saw this in, I think, Minimal Morality as well, they really appreciate their land and their sort of beauty. Like, there's so much nature in these movies.
Totally. Yes.
Like, I don't know where this place is in Kerala, but geez, I just wanted to
No
take a
idea.
plane and have a cup of tea or something like that down there because it looked
It is
amazing.
gorgeous. Yeah, yeah. And you
Yeah.
get a real sense for that vastness in some of those early scenes where they're looking for his wife, who's,
Yes.
missing in
Yeah.
the forest or whatever, right? And they zoom out and you see these like people going across the terrain and there's
Yeah.
forest, there's like rivers and like stony kind of periods as well.
Mm.
It's amazing, man. And just to go off the
Yeah.
back of that, and this is maybe, a cinematography point, but they portray those kind of vast spaces really well. But then
Yeah.
there's like really good contrasts to creating a claustrophobic kind of
Mm.
feel as well. Like every time we're in Luke Anthony's house,
Yeah.
it just feels so like tight and small, and you get that real sense of foreboding every time the new wife is in there, Sujata.
Yes.
She
Yes.
can't escape him, right? Because you can see through all of the kind of walls. The rooms are right next to each other, and you just feel the tension because she can't escape him
Yeah.
anywhere in this house. And so she's just trying to leave the house as often as possible and go to her factory. But I thought that
Yeah.
contrast between the vastness of the like open space versus like that really claustrophobic
Yeah.
feel inside the house, which is like a central location in this place, right? So much happens in that house. So it's important to have that physical sense of the place
Mm.
that Luke Anthony is in. But yeah, that contrast was really well done. But yeah,
Yeah. No, the contrast is great because, like, also, like, we see, like, the beauty from outside and the house is completely devoid, right,
yes,
of anything.
just
It's just bare.
completely pared back, right? There's a
Yeah.
couch, a couple of chairs, a bed, and that is
Hmm.
it. That's right.
That's all, man. The guy's a true minimalist.
He's a living the
um,
minimalist life,
yeah, yeah.
just
So,
maximalist in terms of revenge. That like full 100% revenge.
yeah, yeah. That's a great transition into let's start talking about this movie, man. And it's plot. This is all right. I want to recap what this guy does. Like, there are like I love the genre of revenge movies as well. I've seen
Yeah,
so many of them. I don't know why I just like it. I like to see
yeah,
characters
yeah,
go
yeah,
unhinged. Normally, revenge movies are like the character looking for revenge on the person that's done them wrong.
yeah.
This movie starts after the character's already been gone. So
This
it's what
guy's on
more
another
can you
level.
what more do you have to do? He comes to the town. He tells the police about his missing wife. He gets the police. He gets the villagers to all help him look for, his supposed missing wife who's not there. He builds up
Massive
so
waste of
much,
time.
and then the stuff he does, man. He digs up the guy's grave and steals the skull.
Steve's the skull.
He
Yeah,
he gets his whole family to turn against him. He like
takes
seriously,
over
man.
the factory that he
Yep,
owns. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yep.
that he owns with
Takes over
his
the
wife.
factory, destroys the name. I was like, how fucking the police is this guy literally gonna, like take a piss on the guy's grave or something like that? Like that's
He effectively does.
he
Um,
basically does. It's just insane, man. But in
it
terms of just
is.
like genre and stuff like that, like before getting into the plot and all the twists and turns and the narration
Mm.
style, did this sort of surprise you with this sort of revenge being so different to what we've just seen?
Yeah, like to be honest, and maybe you picked this up much sooner than I did. Like, I did not immediately recognize it was a revenge film because, like, the first 20 minutes is him looking for
Yeah,
his
no,
wife, and I'm like, dude, what's going on here?
yeah,
Is this going to just be a murder mystery where they're going to figure out that a villager did it?
yes,
Only to realize, kind of partway through the film, that this is a revenge flick. I think
yeah,
what I was kind of thrown back by, or like was really surprised by, was just the extent to which this revenge plot was playing out, right? Because
yeah,
you had to build this whole cast of people, each of whom eventually gets screwed over by Luke Anthony, right? Like he like basically rocks up to this village and sets in train a motion of events that basically
yeah,
leaves everyone worse off, except maybe one character.
mm,
But like the extent of this, it's not just him going after like one person or their family.
yeah,
It's he takes everything down with him, right?
Yeah,
And in a way, I did feel like this is a bit of a tragedy because everyone's lives is
oh
screwed
yeah,
over by this, right? And I find that a very interesting thing. But there is also, yeah, just the extent to which he
yeah,
wants revenge. It's just I've never seen this being portrayed in
no,
such
neither
a
have I.
like full on way. I think it just takes revenge flicks to another level.
Yeah, no, me too. I've seen so many revenge flicks. I've not seen anything been done
That's right.
like this to like be like, yeah, I'm gonna burn down everything around you. And like there's supernatural elements to it as well, which we'll touch on, um,
Yes.
which are there. But I think just the fact that yeah, like it
And
is really stagger from it.
I don't know. I was just going to say if something while I was thinking about all the characters involved. So much of I think the interesting part of this film is seeing how people respond to him because he
Yeah,
does things and then they just flip out. Right? They're like, "What is he doing? What is the plan here?" And they're all trying to figure him out. It's not just him doing a thing and then doing another thing. Like the movie takes time to invest in the other characters
yeah,
as they think about what is Mammootty's character up to, which I think is a really
yeah,
interesting thing. If it had just been a straightforward revenge flick, he'd just be going around screwing people over, right? It'd just go from
yeah,
one thing to the next. Here, it kind of lets you build the tension and gets you into the heads of the people who are affected by his actions. And it's not just purely his
yeah.
perspective, which I think is also
Correct.
like unique in terms of the films about revenge I've watched.
No, and I liked it because you talked about perspective there, but this movie and credit to this director because he's actually done something quite complex here. Um, Nissan Bashir,
Mm,
you know, fantastic stuff. But he's actually, it's this is but he's used a unreliable narrator. That's the style that it's sort of gone with, where you can't
yeah,
actually trust what you're seeing. So, this is a pretty, from what I understand, this is a pretty complex way to shoot because you kind of leave the audience like hamstrung. Like I'm watching it and
dude.
I don't know what's going
Yeah.
on, and that's one thing I really appreciated. Like it was just so different.
It is so different. And to be honest, I think that that for me was a bit of a double edged sword because, like, midway through the
Yeah,
film, I was really confused, man. And maybe there are
yeah,
people who are smarter and the audience is smarter and can kind of figure out where it's going. But there was like a middle section when he kind of takes over the factory. He's like,
mm,
married Sujatha,
yeah, yeah,
Dilip's former wife. And I'm just like, what is going on here? I don't understand any of this. And I
yeah,
just
yeah,
eventually had to just sit back and be like, this is going to be explained at some point. But it was
yeah,
a very complex story being told. And I don't know. I don't know if it will lose any people, but it definitely
mm,
for me, I was thinking a lot and then I just had to give up because I was
yeah,
too, it could be a bit convoluted, but maybe
yeah.
that's also the intent. This is a complex psychological movie. It's not a straightforward
Yes,
revenge flick.
correct. Yeah, yeah. I think. Look, I'm pretty happy I watched this at home. Like
Yeah.
it was a thing where I did literally pause and go back and find
Yeah.
out because I was like, what did he do just then? And who's that character? And then like,
Yes.
because you're right. There's quite a few characters, so like I had to sort of get my head around. Who is this guy and what's his interest? Like there was that
True.
character. I forget his name and I don't have it up. The guy that's he's like
Who beats him up?
suspicious.
Who,
No, no,
who,
he hits a hammer on his head at one time, but he's like suspicious of um
yep. 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 Yep.
like, of what's it called? Mammootty's character the whole time. So
Yes.
I was like, what's his
Yes.
interest in here? But he actually played a pretty pivotal role at the end. Um,
Did he? Did he play a pivotal role?
I think he helped to sort of drive the plot along to be like,
Yeah.
trying to
Okay.
question what was going on, and maybe he was
Yep.
kind of like the
Right.
if you're
Like
going
a
to be
link.
anyone in the if you're meant to be anyone in this movie, maybe you're him.
Yeah. 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 That's true. That's true.
So
Just
there's
trying to like figure it out. Yep.
correct, yeah, yeah. So yeah, there was a lot of characters, but yeah, man, he really goes ham on everybody, and yeah, I mean, like, I did like how it also progressed. I'm not sure what you felt about that. Like, it sort of
Yeah.
went from, you mentioned a bit at the start, how, like, it sort of started off with, at the start, we don't know what's going on. But I
It's
think
a misdirect, right? Like,
the biggest misdirect, yeah, like, and
yeah.
we slowly find out what's happening. And then I think one part that really changed, I think the part for me that really switched was when he first saw the ghost version of Philippe, you know?
Yes.
And
Yes.
this is a whole other concept I've not seen before, man. Like, so he's already the guy's passed away, and
Yeah.
he's still extracting revenge, and you can still see him. And his whole goal towards the second half is just trying to extract enough anger out of the people
Yes.
that are around him to bring him back to life. And
Yes.
it's
Mind blowing. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And a completely unexpected like turn of
yeah,
events. It takes on
correct.
this kind of supernatural angle. And yes, it's almost like as soon
Yeah,
as the first time he sees him, he's then focused on how can I annoy this Dilip ghost
Yeah, yeah.
enough that he could come back and they can, I don't know, fight it out or whatever.
I think that's one part I got a bit confused by. I didn't know what exactly his end game was. But
Yeah,
I guess that's sort of one of the kind of criticism, I guess. I was kind of like,
yeah,
what does he actually want out of this? And like, I think you touched on it before about this is a tragedy, and that's the whole thing about this. Like, it's not there is no end game in this. Like, he's
no,
not able to recover, which was such a great perspective on grief, I think, because the
yeah,
movie is
I agree.
seriously about grief, but everything we see is about, most traditional stories about redemption or once you've taken revenge, you can move on with your life. No,
Yes,
this movie says no, that's not how it is all the time. It's actually worse,
yeah,
and
yes.
they portrayed that. But
I think that theme is really like I really got a strong sense of that because I feel like he's entirely just driven by this desire for revenge. There's nothing else that
yeah,
motivates him in life anymore. His wife and child have died, and it's almost like he's a dead man walking by the time the film starts.
yeah,
He's not nothing to live for except utterly destroying the life of this
mm,
guy who's already dead and his family and his legacy, right? And at the end of the film, he's basically just sitting in a jail cell, right? And he hears
yeah,
that the mother has committed suicide, and like my mind went to like, what is he going to live for anymore? He's basically
yeah,
handed himself over to the cops, confessed to a crime. He has nothing less to live for, and it's such a tragedy because that's obviously not how what his wife would have wanted of his life, right?
yeah,
But he is a man who can't let go of what's happened, and of course, it's a tragedy. Like no
mm,
one's going to get over that, but his life is so consumed by this desire for revenge that he's willing to go
yeah.
to all of these lengths, and that in itself, that is his life
Yeah.
from now on, is such a tragedy.
It's definitely there's no traditional character development like you would
No,
sort of expect in a movie, right? Like he is almost the
100%.
same. He's driven by rage at the start of the movie. He's driven by
Yeah,
rage and revenge by the end of the movie.
100%.
It's the same. So he's actually just stayed the same character throughout the entire movie,
Yeah,
which
that's
is,
right.
and it's been completely acceptable. I didn't have any issues with it at all, which
No,
is
no, that's right. That was just him. He
crazy.
had a plan, or
Um,
he wanted a thing and he found a way to achieve it.
yeah, yeah. But, speaking of the end, but though, I do think that like I don't know if you caught it at the very end. He says "Welcome back." I was a little confused
Yes.
by what that meant, but I think what it means is it's still going on. Like it's not ended. It's still
Right.
running in his head. So he's still seeing
Right.
him. Because he says that
Ah,
another time earlier. He says
I
I think
see.
when he sees
Right.
him for the second time, he says something like "Welcome back," and then
Yeah. Ah, you're here.
he
Yep. Yep.
has like
Yep.
a punch on. Um,
Yeah.
so, but this time at the
Good.
end, it finishes off with "Welcome back." So I'm like, oh, okay.
That's a
So
good point. I didn't understand that
yeah,
either, but okay, so it's not done. He's still
yeah, man.
ruled
Like
by this. Yeah.
this
This
movie is
this
so dark. Like
yes. It's
it
hard.
really.
It really is.
Yeah, it's one of the
It
darkest movies I've seen in a while, man. Like it really pushes that no joy at all. And but again, like it's completely entertaining. It doesn't. I don't know, man. Like I never felt like sad during this
no,
movie for some reason.
no,
Like
that's right. And like maybe one of my maybe like shortcomings of this film, if I had to choose one,
mm,
was I never felt entirely emotionally invested in any of these characters.
mm,
Like I obviously wanted, the bad guy to get exposed for the villain he is, but the Luke Anthony character, brilliantly portrayed, terrifically acted, but you never learn much about him, right? All you
yeah,
know is he rocks up to this village wanting revenge and pursues it with that. He's got some money, like he's a rich dude by the like you get
mm,
some flashbacks to his home,
yes,
which is very lavish and stuff, right? He's been to Dubai or something. He's very he's well off, but you don't really get and he had a wife and child who he loved. But you don't really get too much more from him.
yeah,
And I think that's a conscious choice from the director because you never the director doesn't want to show you whether the Mammootty character is a good guy or a bad guy. That's kind
yeah,
of the excitement, right? Because you don't know what he's thinking. He looks like a creep sometimes. Other times he does really nice things, right? Like, do you remember that housemaid that he gives her the money
yes,
and she
yes,
goes back home or something? So you get like two different sides of him and he's complex. And so it's a narrative choice that you don't get too much of a background on, Mammootty and his life with his wife and kids or, what it was like before then, because you want to keep the audience guessing as to what his real character is. And I couldn't
Yeah.
help but like compare it to almost John Wick, right? At least at the start of that
Oh,
film, you get like a
yeah.
random excerpt of him and his wife and what their life was together, right?
Yep.
Before it's all taken away from him and he then starts his revenge
Yep.
mission. Here, you don't even get that,
No.
right? Because you want to keep the audience in the dark as to what is the motivations of this guy. And so,
Yeah.
like, some of that emotional pull isn't there. And so maybe I never felt sad, but you could certainly appreciate the tragedy that unfolds in all of these characters' lives.
Yeah, definitely. I think the point about that I was thinking of while you're talking was like, there's no really sympathetic character in
True,
this movie.
100%. Yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah.
no one except for probably the son-in-law. He's probably he's just caught up in all this. Like it goes to the extent like even the cop is corrupt and he's dirty.
Oh,
Um, you
and
know,
this 100% right, man. And this
yeah.
is sorry to randomly just
Nah, go for it.
raise other points, but all of these characters all have kind of a sinful side to them. I mean, we all have a sinful
Yes.
side, but like, you think about the father who runs off with the money and has cheated on the
Yep.
mother,
True.
right? And he gets killed, but he's not an honest man, right? He's
Hmm.
running away from his family and he's going to be with his mistress or whatever. You
Yeah.
have the police cop who's, okay, he's investigating the crime, but he's not
Yeah.
doing it for the sake of justice. It's so he can bribe the people involved and get money out of them, right?
Yep.
He's not motivated by a good thing, and he gets killed at the end.
Correct.
You see Dilip, who's obviously not a good guy, and he has
Yes.
died in this film already. The son-in-law may be kind of a good guy, but he's kind of tangentially involved and is overwhelmed by
Yeah.
guilt. And even when he confesses, it's not a happy thing, right? It's just,
No.
it's bittersweet because he's giving up on his family.
Yeah.
Yeah, just so many characters here who are completely tarnished, who are guided by greed or corruption or even Luke Anthony, revenge, like not a
Yeah.
good thing to have, right? It destroys him, even if
Correct.
he achieves what he wants at the end. So, yeah, I feel like the only character who I wasn't quite sure about was the wife or the Sujata
Yeah. I
character.
was gonna
Like,
bring that up.
and maybe you'll tack on that. I don't understand. Was she a good person or a bad person, or
I
like
don't
was
know.
she implicated in any of this? Because I've kind of felt
I
sorry because he was terrorizing her, like this Luke Anthony character.
oh
Like she
yeah,
felt
far out.
unsafe in the house, man. Like
Far
so
out,
Luke
man.
Anthony, not a good dude. I was like fearful, like
Yeah.
what's going
No,
on, man?
no. He was harassing that poor woman, but
Yeah,
I
dude,
mean,
that was
just
brutal.
it's the concept itself is insane, man. Like he's marrying the wife of the person that killed him. Like that itself is just enough to, that the
He's not a
level of craziness in this movie is like
That's
beyond.
right.
Like that's not what you would typically see or expect. But
100%. And so you make a good observation that even like there's not many sympathetic characters. Even your main
no,
lead, the guy who you want to
no,
get the revenge because some bad thing has happened, he's not a terribly good guy either. Like he
no.
sleeps with her, right? Just to provoke Dilip
Yes.
to come out
Just like,
and have a
yep,
fight with him. I'm like, dude, that's going
yeah.
too far,
That's
man. What has this lady done to you? So hard.
yeah, yeah.
Jesus. In
Now
fact, I
she was
almost feel,
a
yeah, yeah. Go on, man.
no, I was gonna say she was a really interesting one. I couldn't really pick because there's nothing that she's done really wrong or bad, but I think it's just I don't know the way they portray her is like I guess she's disliked by everybody because like her introduction scene is like
Good
you
point.
know
Yes.
like the mother is like telling her like oh she's I never really liked her much and she's just in the corner. So I don't
Yes.
know. I think it is again very deliberate narrative choice and director choice to not show anything positive about Sujata, um,
Yes.
regardless of the fact that she might be a good person in the end. She's really just a victim of everything. In fact, she probably has one of the most tragic um, stories of all because she married somebody who was a crook. Then she got
Yeah.
married to this crazy dude who used her for trying to extract a ghost.
Far out,
Like
man.
it's and then she sees a factory burned down and oh my god, it's
It's a good point that she is really a super tragic character, but I also do think she has the one ending that is almost like not completely tragic because she learns
yeah,
that her husband, she's able to get away from the ghost of her, ironically, the ghost of her husband because she
yeah,
realizes that he's a criminal. She burns down all the remnants of him by burning down the factory. And,
yeah,
she then beats up Luke Anthony's car and like
yeah,
kind of lets him know that, she's not going to take his crap anymore. And she just drives off with the guy. So it's almost like she has a cathartic narrative because she at least is able to escape all of these
mm,
forces and get something of a good ending. But everyone else literally is dying in
yeah,
jail, tormented by guilt or whatever. Like it's pretty
yeah.
grim.
It is very grim, man. Like, so I think I think the son escapes. Anil, he escaped.
Yes.
I think he had kind of a strange ending. But again, he's a sort of a
Wait,
character
didn't
who
he
also.
die? Did
Oh
did
yes,
did
yes, you're right. He did
he
die.
did,
Yeah,
right?
he
Oh,
got
yeah, yeah.
buried.
Because the
Yeah,
mother runs away. Yeah, yeah, yeah. As
yeah, and he got
he's
buried in the grave,
killed.
I think, or something like that. Yeah, so the son goes. The mother, kills herself. The cop gets poisoned.
Yeah,
You're right. It's actually a very, very dark movie, man. Like everybody sort of suffers in this movie. There's really no light at all, which is, I mean, tremendous respect. Like these movies are
commitment.
always so committed to their cause, and they don't waver at all. Like
No.
um, there's nothing like they like. I think if they had done something like tried to put one sort of saintly character or something like that, it would have thrown this movie completely off on its tone.
Yes, that's
Um,
right. That's right.
Maybe I just think it's a good decision that they just went this direction because it just creates something unique that I've just
That's
not
right.
really seen.
I completely agree, man. And it is,
Yeah,
as you're saying, total respect to the commitment here to not just have kind of a fluffy ending where everything is
yeah,
resolved neatly or something. It is a dark, gritty, and cynical perspective on the
yeah,
world, and not entirely kind of unreal. Like it is
correct.
believable that these kind of characters could exist and that these kind
Mm,
of things could happen in the real world.
definitely, man. I do want to talk a little bit about because I think we talked about a lot about the plot, but I want to talk about some of the
Mm,
scenes because there were some pretty epic scenes in this, man.
mm,
Um, so what were sort of some of your favorite scenes, or what were some of your favorite I mean, there's so many that just went through my head. Whether
yeah.
the burning of the barn or the
Yes. Yes.
poisoning scene that we saw before. Um,
Yeah.
some of the scenes where he's like there's just so much good character work in this. Like there's something like he goes into like I think the mother's like the family tries to sue or try to get their claim back or something like that,
Yeah.
and he
Yeah.
comes in
Yeah.
and just beats them all up and they're applauding him and he's like people are cheering for violence here. Like it's kind of like you
Oh,
kind of
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
you don't understand him. Like okay, are you so do you not are you not a violent person but you are happy to kill people? Like I don't understand you.
Yes, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
They're
Um,
unbelievable, man.
yeah.
Um, there are some, even I appreciated even some of the like really smaller scenes that were really kind of very thoughtful, I thought. Even
Mm,
where you're building up that character Barlin, the father who runs away with the
yes. Yes.
cash. Like that's almost like a nice friendship because he's found
Uh,
someone in the Luca Anthony character who like he can have, a drink with and like can be honest with. Obviously something that he can't do with his own family for whatever reason. And it's
yeah.
just like those small moments of building up a character who dies, 15 minutes later.
Yeah.
I just love that so much because you flesh out the reality of the world that he's inhabiting, right?
Mm,
And I just think so much respect to how that's done. Even like
yeah.
smaller choices that you notice. Do you remember that scene even where the butterfly is flying through the house?
Yes. Yes.
Just like it's so just
Yeah.
like beautifully done. It's not there to necessarily tell a story or anything, but it's just kind of unique imagery to keep you
Mm,
entertained and hooked. Because this isn't a short film, right? It's over 2.5
no.
hours, I would
Yeah.
say. So you need to do kind of unique things to keep the audience entertained, particularly when there's a very complex plot
Yeah.
that might lose people. These little cinematic touches are so well done. Even the way that the film chooses to show when the Rorschach character appears, right? It'll be like these
Yes. Yes.
distorted images in the corner of the screen or in the corridor, and you're like, what is going on? Other times it's like the hairs on his hand or
Yeah.
on his arm rising a little bit. And I just thought like really unique and clever ways to keep the audience entertained
Yeah.
during this film. So just such
Yeah.
thoughtful kind of every shot seems really well thought through, and just
Yeah.
props to the director on this because it's such a well put together film and like consistent the entire way through.
You're right, and it's even like it's not just a complex plot. It's already sort of we mentioned it. It's not. It's really dark, so there's not really much to really uplift you or sort of get you in a good mood. I
No,
guess the thing that it's just like I mean, while watching this movie, I was on the edge for most of the time. Like I was like, what's
100%.
happening next and what's going on? So the thriller aspect of this movie was
Yes.
fantastic. Some of my favorite scenes, I don't know. This again, I think my favorite sort of aspect of the scene of the movie was just the facial expressions, man. I can't get over them.
Yes.
Like there's just
No.
um, there's just so many. Like there's even small ones like I think after the dad you talked about, Balin, who gets killed by his son. Um,
Brutal,
you know,
man.
by a rock in just a fit of rage, right? Like he didn't need to kill him, but
That's
he just
yeah.
loses control because he was apparently a bad person,
Yes.
for what he's done. But then, again, like we have his face of like shock of like, what have I just done? And then you have the
Yes.
face of obviously the my favorite
Old
character, the
mate.
son-in-law,
Old mate.
who's
He's like
just looking in
found
shock once
himself in
again.
another
Yeah,
situation.
at the very start, he's just stuck in this. And then again, you mentioned like the first time he sees Dilip in like,
Yes.
as he's appearing. That's really cool, that effect.
Yes, like a
The
distorted
distorted
image,
look.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that close
Yeah,
up
yeah,
of
yeah.
his face and he's just like, smirking a little bit, but also a bit angry and like it's you can't pinpoint it
Yes.
exactly. So they're doing a lot of good um work with that, I think. So
100%.
there's a lot. I mean,
And
even you go for it.
oh no, go on.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, even from Sujata, like the level of frustration she's going through while hearing her, her mother and stuff talk about her and like in the side and she's marrying this guy and
Yes.
then that scene when they're having like dinner or something like that and he's like boasting about making
Making
English
breakfast.
breakfast. It's like,
She's like, I don't want to. What are you trying to do with my life?
yeah,
Are you trying to just keep me as a housewife?
yeah,
Losing her mind, and he's just
like
coolly
just
eating his buttered toast.
throwing the plates like one by one. Like, um, there's a lot
Um,
of really good stuff in this movie.
Amazing. And as you're talking, another scene that comes to my mind is when the Luke Anthony character is buying her coffee at the hospital. She's
Ah,
just
yes,
like
yes.
not interested, right? He's like trying to, is he kind of
Um,
flirting with her or what? And she's just kind of like, and he's like, let me get you a coffee. And then he's like, are you going to drink it? And she does. And he's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's not very good, is it? I'm just like, dude, stop, leave her alone. She's like
And
just
then
there.
in fact, that might be my favorite scene. That scene because then he does this thing where he goes, it's pretty late now. Why don't we have breakfast at my house? And then he just makes this creepy face where he just looks, and I'm like,
Oh, dude,
what are
such a
you
seedy guy.
doing? So seedy, so bad. But I was like, this is so good. Yeah, that one might be my favorite. It's
That was incredible, man.
I think we'll talk just before we sort of touch on to the comparisons and stuff. We didn't talk too much
Yeah.
about the action.
Mm,
Because this is, as you said, the action is there, and you sort of described it before. They don't get Mammootty to do too much.
yeah.
What I call this is and obviously because we watch Hollywood movies mostly, and
Yeah,
I'm a
yeah,
big fan
yeah.
of Liam Neeson.
Of course.
This is
Yeah, yeah,
this is
yeah.
what I call the old man Liam Neeson way of action, where like you don't move
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
run, they come to you. So
They come to you. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he's standing, and then they're jumping at him, and he's just deflecting them off,
Oh man,
one
that
by
is such a
one.
good observation. I'd never noticed that. Yeah, yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
that's like old action when old action stars get old,
Yeah.
like Stallone and stuff. Like they won't do the stuff they used to do with car
Yes.
chase scenes or like running around in tanks and stuff like that. They'll just sort of stand
Yes.
there and just do it hand to hand. Um,
Yes.
that's about all. But the action
I mean,
scenes
you
were,
could
I
have
mean,
you could
go
have
for it.
already. I wonder if you even needed those action sequences, I guess, to keep it interesting and
Yeah,
stuff. But it was never a doubt in my mind that he was going to beat everyone up. Like it
yeah.
was pretty
I
straightforward.
mean,
I mean, was it necessary? But at the same time, maybe the audience come to expect that of a film from Mammootty, who I imagine is an action star. But I
yeah.
don't know anything about him, to be honest. But yeah,
No, not really sure about what his track record is. People listening to this, do let us know if you do know, because he's obviously
mm,
seems like a legendary actor. But
yeah,
if he is a normally action star or dramatic star, I think I think the action scenes were, while they weren't like they weren't like the best action scenes we've seen. I think they sort of just help for that variety and the tension to sort of
yes,
release a little bit because it's just
good point.
it's just a flat out action scene, and this movie's so dense. It just needs those
Yes,
moments of just like, let's just see if you guys, try.
straightforward.
Yeah.
Get beaten up. Yeah, yeah, yeah. 100%,
But
100%. Agree.
one thing I sort of didn't like was like I didn't understand why he was such a good fighter, and this is kind of a trope. Like he didn't have a background as a cop or something like that, so I didn't
No,
understand how this old man can come around and beat everybody up and not. Like the last scene, the last brawl, he's fighting like five people and he doesn't have a scratch.
yeah,
So
he
I'm
is.
kind of like, yeah, okay, but I moved past it. But yeah, it was
Yeah, yeah.
kind of a thing where I was like, it doesn't make much sense. And a movie that's so dedicated to character, it's a
Yes.
bit
And
off.
dedicated to realism as well, I think, right?
Yeah,
Like so much of the power of this film is that it's so believable and there's nothing
correct.
outrageous that happens. And this is probably a mild criticism I have of the supernatural element to this film. I don't know how you felt about
Yeah,
it. Maybe you thought that that was kind of a nifty element and something
mm,
new to throw in, but I was just like, do we need this ghost character in there? Like it just took away
Yeah.
from the reality and grittiness of this film. But it might have worked for
Yeah.
other people. I didn't think
So I think
it took me out of the realism. Yeah.
that leads me to a good one because, like, so we want to compare this movie with a little bit because we've seen a few Malayalam movies, and I've noticed
Yeah.
one thing in particular is they like and yeah, let me know what you think, but it seems like they like to subvert your expectations of things. From whether
Mm,
it's Jana Gana Mana from what we saw early on, like that was
good
a
point.
complete like mind twist. Then even
Yes.
like recently we saw Minal Murali and how that portrayed the villain so well that you kind of even back the villain all the way to the end.
Yes. Yes.
So again, this might have just been them. Like this whole movie is subverting expectations. Like I've never seen a
True.
revenge plot which starts off after the person's gone and he's still after revenge. Like that
Yes.
itself is not something you see. Then to add the supernatural element, like I do think maybe they do get quite ambitious because they're like,
Yes.
why don't we just try this and try this? It does seem like a very experimental kind of cinema.
Yes.
They're
Yes.
not
You're
they're
right.
not scared and not bold to try things. So I definitely didn't mind it because it's just one they did it so well,
Yeah.
and it sort of brought that to reality, I think, because
Yeah.
you can tell there's something off with him, and
Yes.
obviously the ghost isn't real, no one else can see the ghost, but we sort of get inside his mind, and we're kind of like, this is how his world is right now. Like he's living in
Yeah.
a world where he's
Yes.
completely focused on this ghost, and he's just like, I mean, even some of the scenes he's in a house, he's looking around, like looking for a ghost. How
Yeah.
crazy is
Yeah. Yeah.
that? Like,
And he's happy when he's there or whatever and getting beaten up, right? He's
yeah,
got a smile on his face the
correct.
entire time. Yeah.
Yeah, he loves it. How did you compare this movie with some of the other stuff you sort of saying, man?
Yeah. You make a really good observation about kind of that boldness of an experimental choice and
Mm,
subverting expectations, because I think you're absolutely right. All of these films have like familiar markers of things you see in a lot of genres, and then there'll be something that's thrown in that's just like completely random or turns the story on its head.
yeah,
And I really appreciate that. And irrespective of sometimes whether you pull it off or not, you've got to admire the braveness of going after these kind of
correct.
subversive choices, because you don't get that in big budget films, at least in Hollywood,
Mm,
right? They're telling a very linear plot. That's going to work well with the audience, and it's going to get you a certain amount of money that will get you kind of some profits. So you're never encouraged to be bold in your filmmaking. Whereas this seems like a fairly decent budget film, and they took
mm,
these kind of narrative choices that are subverting expectations, as you say, that aren't subject to happy endings or whatever. Like people are
yeah,
sad at the end of this. And yeah, just kind of go in directions you never see. And I can imagine this film being polarizing in some respects. Some people might say it's
oh, yeah,
confusing. I don't get it. I'm not a fan. But I'm sure the filmmaker and the director knew that going in,
yeah,
and they still said, "No, I'm committed to this vision." So, like, you got to respect that, and
yeah,
it's with experimentation that you can really find like diamonds in the rough, right?
correct.
And really give people an experience that they come out of talking about. Because how many films do you watch? You just go in there.
Mm,
As soon as you leave the film, you never talk about it again, right?
yep,
Here's a film that will play on your mind. You'll be trying to dissect what's going on and has characters that linger with you. And so I got to respect those in choices. And I feel like that is something we're seeing a lot in these Malayalam films.
yeah,
And like it's so refreshing coming from watching Hollywood films, I think, to see these kind of gritty films that are like
mm,
dark and go in unexpected directions.
correct, man. No, no, it's really refreshing to watch this kind of stuff. It just, yeah, again, watching mostly Hollywood, you're right. This would be deemed too risky to
Yes.
do it all. Like, I mean, there's some movies that do stuff with like timeline and things like that. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
like Inception or like Memento. Um,
Yeah.
Movies that sort of do a little bit of that, but even there, like compared to what we're seeing here, it's like
Yes.
they like like Malayalam movies are like we'll take one concept and add something else onto that to make it even more
Yes.
crazier. Um,
Yes.
you know, that's
You use the word ambition, and that is
yeah,
completely apt for this, because I don't think you can define this as one genre.
yeah,
It's
no, you
got
can't.
drama, it's got thriller, mystery,
Yeah,
supernatural, noir stuff
yeah,
going on. It crams in as much as you can fit in, and for better or worse, like that is unique. It's pushing the
mm,
boundaries, and this
yeah,
is why probably so many exciting things are coming out of Malayalam
yeah.
cinema right now, right?
Oh no, this is a industry which I think is just set to just take off. I think it's definitely in the right place right now because everything seems to be, especially with Hollywood, it's
Yeah,
very safe.
yeah.
The only movie that I thought of that gave me a little bit of this feeling from Hollywood, I don't know if you've seen this one, Shutter Island. Have you seen this movie from
Yes, I have.
Scorsese?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
saw it a long time ago, but it has that same dark feel and the same unreliable narrator concept is there. Like
Yes, yes,
in that one,
yes.
I think it was DiCaprio's character. He's like hallucinating half the time, so you don't
He
know
is. That's
what's
right.
actually happening and what's real and what's in his
Or true or
imagination.
not.
Um,
100%.
and that's
Yes.
what this movie did a lot. I mean, this movie I think did it probably a little bit. I don't know if it did better, but it did it almost as good. Or that's just a
Yes.
good movie. But yeah, this is the only one that reminded me of that a
Yeah,
little bit
that's
more. Yeah.
right. And both of those films, they're such moody and atmospheric pieces,
Yes,
right?
correct.
And the atmosphere in this film is just tense, foreboding, like things are going to go off the rails at any point. You're always in a state of discomfort. And it's
Yes.
just the whole film, right? You're just on the edge of your seat being like, what is going on? What's the next step? What's the end game here? And
Yeah.
that sense of tension never leaves. And I think we haven't touched on it, but the music here is also excellent
Oh
in
yeah,
terms of
yeah,
like drumming up the intensity that you constantly feel
yeah,
like it matches the heartbeat and the intensity of this film. So I think that's
yeah.
done really well. There is this random English song that's like thrown in here,
Yes.
and
I was
I
gonna.
wasn't a huge fan of that, to be honest.
I
I
didn't.
just
I didn't quite
um,
understand why or like what the choice was with the. I mean, I did dig it. It was a pretty, creepy kind of song, but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, I didn't really
It
understand
kind
why
of
the English
no,
overlay was on top of the movie. But look,
no, that's right.
I don't know. Maybe again, it's just them, you know, doing something with
Experimenting a
a
bit.
bit different. Yeah, I
Yes,
don't know.
yes,
Maybe yeah, there must be something to that. Maybe the director was a fan of some kind of genre and he wanted to make it feel a certain way, like a
yes.
classic, noir movie or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
Maybe
100%,
something like
100%.
that. Because yeah, this movie did have that element to it. It could easily fit into you know um a classic piece from like the 1940s and stuff like that when a lot of film noir was around.
100%. Yes.
Um, yeah, man. But yeah, I think we can probably move on to our disco. It's been a lot to talk
Yeah,
about. I think we've gone through a lot about the characters and cast, and about
that's
um,
right.
the differences. And I think we're both pretty high up on this movie, man. So might as well
I
start with
reckon.
yourself, Sonny, man. Where does this sit on your D scale?
This is dynamite for me. I think this is such an
Yeah.
enjoyable film. Keeps you on the edge of your seat. It's combined so many different genres that you never quite know what's going to happen next or the tone of the film, how it's going to change. Has just terrific all round performances, I think, across the board from Mammootty
Mm,
as well as all the other supporting cast. Um, Really uncompromising vision of this world that's been created. It doesn't let up at all
yeah.
from the first scene to the end. It's 100% committed to creating this dark noir
Mm,
landscape vibe and ultimately a fairly tragic plot. So I think people are going to enjoy this film, would highly recommend it. And
yeah.
yeah, this is another Malayalam hit in my view.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is right down my wheelhouse, man. Like this is,
Yeah.
as much as people like, if I was to take any genre of movies I like, especially as
Yeah.
of late, it's definitely the crime element, murder
Yes.
mystery kind of stuff, much more than even stuff like sci-fi and stuff like that. I'm starting a little bit tired of that
Yeah.
genre, where I'm really leaning into this kind of stuff more now.
Yeah.
So this is as high as a dynamite as it gets, man. Like this is
Gee. Yes.
really, really good. I enjoyed this so much. And it's taken me, again, this genre is not one that's been fleshed out much. There's not so many
No.
movies like that really tackle the film noir genre because it is pretty grim and dark and it's not for
Yeah.
everybody. But
True.
but this is done so creatively, the narration style itself is enough to really keep me gripped. Again, you mentioned the performances from Mammootty, and yeah, you're right, man. Like, there's a lot of credit has to go to everyone in this cast. Like, I think the mother, you're right. Bindu Panikar is her name. She was phenomenal in some of those scenes, and
Amazing.
um, yeah, this is so much I like about this movie, man. This is really high up there. Yeah, I'm tempted to just give it a dope because I like that genre too much. But there were a
Neat.
few small things. I think if the action
Yeah.
scenes
Me too.
a little
Yeah.
bit here and there
Yeah.
to character, maybe I would have given it a complete dope. But look, it's very high up. It's easily one of the favorite movies I've seen. Oh yeah, and it will go into a special place of sort of the crime genres, which I like.
Yes, that's right. Completely unique of itself category, this film.
Yeah, it reminded me a little bit of like we saw the Batman movie earlier, which has sort of the dark feel, but
Yeah, true.
but that's for a detective, so that's very traditional again. Like
Yes, it
film
is.
noirs and
It
cop and
is.
detectives are always together, but this is the other side. You know,
100%.
um,
This is,
yeah,
yeah, an uncompromising vision. And
correct,
it's unlike anything I've seen in a very long time, man.
yeah. Well, do let us know your Discord ratings, anyone listening, and please let us know some more suggestions like this, because yeah, this is awesome. This is one that I want to watch more of. Yeah, let us know your Discord ratings, what you thought about it, any more stuff about Mammootty, and yeah, this is an awesome conversation, Sonny man. We'll catch you on the next one.
Looking forward to it, man. See you all.
Cheers, mate. Bye.